Hello everyone and welcome to the panel on gender and sexuality. In lieu of an introduction, if you're comfortable with it, could you speak a bit about how you identify?
Fox, you're first.
Oh man, everything's so laggy. Hi guys, I'm Fox. I am a queer, transmasculine, gender fluid trans guy. Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Oh, it's me now. I'm not used to being second. I was like second to last time. Hi, I'm Laura Lamb, and I'm a cisgender bisexual woman, and my pronouns are she and her.
I am Tanika Stutz. I identify as queer at this time. I'm happily committed, and that's all I want to say on the subject.
I'm Nita. I'm a cis demisexual queer lady. Yes.
Do you have LGBTQIA plus characters in your work?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
I think we're meant to say more than one word.
I have an entire book that I'm part of that I got to kickstart with a really great person in my life, Spay Our Monster, who is a openly identified trans man. It's called Beyond, the queer science fiction and fantasy comics anthology. So yeah, pretty queer.
Do you guys want to talk about your project a little bit, just for the people who don't know them?
All right, I'll go. So I've written Pantomime. This is the old cover, and Shadow Play. And they're currently back out on ebook in all good ebook retailers. And Pantomime stars a intersex, gender fluid, bisexual main character, and also some secondary queer characters as well. And my newest book, which looks so pretty, is False Hearts, which just came out. It's so shiny, and it's got red-edged papers. And it has biracial, bisexual, formerly conjoined twin main characters who were raised in a cult. So I've got a fair amount of intersexuality with them there. Yeah, I love this book, and I love all my books. And lots of queer people everywhere.
Yay!
Fox?
Yeah, my first book doesn't. My second book, which I'm working on edits for at the moment, it's set in South Africa, and it's a township, so it's black South African, entirely queer cast for the main bulk of it. It's so much fun. It's music, and there's drama and terribleness. I'm also working on middle grade with a gender fluid main character. And a disabled best friend, which I adore, and a secret YA thing with a transmasculine teen, and lots of sexy times, because of course.
Oh. Nita?
Oh, okay. So my first book that I'm on sub with. Can I say that? I'm on sub with it.
Fingers crossed.
Had a queer side character, and my second book that I'm theoretically supposed to be finishing revisions on, that I'm calling Sad Bye Book, has a bisexual main character whose secret girlfriend dies, and the only person she can turn to is her girlfriend's ex-girlfriend. So it's about her navigating her bisexuality and dealing with grief basically in a bubble when no one else knows she's grieving. So
that does sound really, really sad.
I put the sad in Sad Bye Book, yeah.
Current stories are Full Circle, which has a asexual main heroine, and then there's also my Beyond story, which has a non-binary monarch and a lesbian space pirate princess who run around.
Oh, hell yeah.
Who happen to run around. This is my book. This is one of them. This is the one that we got to take to Kickstarter and create. It's 272 queer comics done by creators like John Cairns, Gabby Reed, Spay Monster, and pretty much it changed my life. So, more queer comics, please.
Yes. Okay, so what do you think is lacking in terms of representation in fiction? Fiction, whether in comics and books, everywhere.
And we lost Fox.
I think we lost
We
Fox.
might have.
Oh no. Okay,
No,
I'll go.
Fox.
I'll go until.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
okay, I'll go until we recover Fox.
Please.
Okay.
I think there is definitely a huge lack in asexuality. Like you need to really quite look hard, I think, to find good ace rep and demisexual rep. Still, we could use more bisexual rep that doesn't conform to annoyingly bad tropes. There's more than there used to be. And just kind of queer rep in general. Like, it's getting better, but I think we could all do a lot more. Trans men I don't see as often as trans women, I think, in fiction. Not that many genderqueer. Just more everything, please.
Definitely what Laura said about more ace rep, especially ace rep on the page. I've talked about this before on Twitter about how we, like, when there is ace rep, it's usually like not reading into it, but like you're kind of having to search and be like, oh, maybe this character's ace. Like, I would like to see
They
more
didn't
characters.
have a romance, so maybe they're
Yeah.
ace.
Yeah, I'd like to see people actually using the word. Like, I think that's important. I think we're lacking a lot of intersectionality as well. It's very still like white cis queer kids, and we really need to move beyond that.
Fox, can you hear us now?
Hey, yes, what did I miss?
Do we need more of in fiction in rep?
Yeah. What is lacking in terms of representation in fiction? We lost Fox again. Oh no.
Fox!
Tanika?
Alright, while we're waiting for Fox, just as much as we're missing all the asexual and the intersectional and the pretty much general representation of the characters, we're also missing those in the creators themselves, because the creators are part of the creation that they're creating. So them having a platform and a voice and are given those opportunities to, create these characters, be with these characters, and guide us on their journeys would be just as much of a great caveat as well as having these characters. Because I knew for me, growing up, I didn't have a lot of role models or mentors I could look up to as far as people who looked or identified or understood me as me. So I would like those role models to exist as well as I would like those characters to exist, because if they coexist, then that makes for a happy existence all around.
Yeah, very true. I don't think Fox is joining us right now, so are there any tropes you'd like to see gone about gender and sexuality?
Well, I'm most familiar, I think, with the bi tropes, since that's how I identify. So the really obvious ones where they conform to a lot of stereotypes, like, oh, here's the cheating bisexual. I can't speak. The cheating bisexual, or like, you see it a lot in real life as well. So if you're having it in fiction, those harmful tropes will feed back. Like, recently we saw how poorly Amber Heard was treated in the press after she came out saying that she'd been abused by Johnny Depp, and everyone was like, well, she's this bisexual who can't be trusted and clearly just wants his money. And that's a direct result of all of the stereotypes that we see both in fiction and in media as a result. So that's really frustrating. Also, characters who just like exist to be the random gay character and they don't really do anything on their own, or you don't see them as a hero of their own story. You see them through someone else's eyes, which is quite common, and things like that. Those are the ones I can think of off the top of my head, but I'm sure you guys will have others.
I would like to see a lot of tropes dismantled. I don't think there's enough time for us to sit here and let me go through my laundry
Yeah,
list.
I was like, I have more, but I'll stop there.
I think we all feel them in our hearts, and every time they come back on television or in the media we read or latest spotlight, it's something where you're just like, oh, wow, gee, I really wish that didn't exist. For me, I wish they would
killing us. Sorry.
Yeah, I was about to say, stop fridging us. It'd be really nice. I don't like to open a book, start reading it, and the first thing that happens is kill your gays, kill your gay darlings. Needing to fuel that some sort of pain, let's go ahead and just annihilate this person. That would be really great if they stopped just destroying us, because that's a really harmful message that you're sending to people, and you don't know how they're going to take that message and put it forward.
Yeah.
Yep. Yes. They just see us stop dying. That would be
Please.
great.
Have one happy ending, please.
Yes. Like Laura was speaking to bisexual tropes. There's not a ton of that I can think of off the top of my head of ace tropes, mostly because there's not a lot of asexual representation to begin with. I would like the notion that I feel like using asexual, for some reason, what pops into my head is like the nerdy boy who spends all his time with his video games rather than people, and I would like just the idea that ace people are frigid or are
Not extrovert.
Yeah, exactly. Like that, the idea that asexual is synonymous with like being socially awkward or whatever. I would also like to see the predatory lesbian trope die in a fire. But those are the two I can think of off the top of my head.
Also, just in general, it'd be really great if people weren't dismissive of asexuals or other sorts of characters. That's not a trope. That's just a problem with people having kind of negative connotations towards people who exist outside of their realm of understanding at that time. It's okay for people to kind of have voice, to exist, and they don't really harm you in any way, shape, or form. So just give it a rest.
Yep.
Yeah.
Do you think the amount of representation varies a lot from genre to genre, contemporary and speculative?
Well, I like how in speculative fiction you can have the freedom to change your society. So, like, I remember reading Lynn Flewelling when I was around 13, and there was no homophobia in that fantasy world. And, you know, it started with these two guys having an adventure in medieval fantasy land, and then they slowly and surely became a romantic couple. And I was so excited by that because no one cared, no one made a big deal about it. Alec was a little bit, one of them was a bit like, well, I haven't come across this and I'm a little hesitant. But it was really freeing to read about a world where it wasn't like, this is bad, this is wrong. And I think that had a really long-lasting effect on me in both my fiction and just like in life. I found it really life-changing. So I like that you can, in speculative fiction, erase current bigotries to tell your stories where you don't have to focus in the same way on homophobia, which, you know, that's still important and we should still have those stories. But it's nice to kind of step away from that as well and have the freedom to do that.
Nita?
Fox is back. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Gonna say anything.
Yeah, Fox is back, but let's see if that...
Turn off your video, Fox.
But is he really?
Is he really back though?
Are you there, Fox?
Fox.
Hello. No.
Fox. There's a fox. Fox. Hey.
Oh, yay. Hi.
Hi. Maybe we should go back to the previous question and let Fox answer that,
I have no problem with that.
if no one minds. Fox, the previous question it was, what do you think is lacking in terms of representation in fiction, and what are the tropes you'd like to see gone?
Okay. So there's a lot actually.
No.
No.
Fox.
Oh, this is so sad. Maybe he could chat. Maybe he could enter his answers in the chat, and then maybe we could read them out or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't get that far.
If he wants to send you the comments in like Skype or something, maybe that might be a better program.
I'll suggest that.
Or have him join, but don't turn on his video, and it might work better. We could at least get his voice.
Yeah.
That's another really, really good example.
Like that. But in the meanwhile, if you wanted to, Nita, do you want to answer the question we were talking about?
What was the question again?
About the amount of representation varying from genre to genre.
Yeah, I can definitely talk about that. This is something because I write contemporary, and that's kind of like what's in my wheelhouse right now is a lot of contemporary, because that's what I read too. I was talking with Dahlia Adler about this too, how there's not a lot of the amount as far as like queer girl representation in straight contemporary as opposed to queer male representation in straight, like just contemporary is really skewed. Like we don't have a David Levithan for queer girls, essentially. Like, we don't have that one author consistently putting out contempt books with queer girls. And like, we've got really great queer contempt authors like Robin Talley, Tess Sharp, Dahlia's book, Under the Lights. Those are really good, but I would, I think too, a lot of times people feel like putting queer issues in a contemporary book means you have to make it an issue book or make it about the queerness, but I don't think that necessarily has to be the case. Like, queer kids need to know or need to be able to see that they can survive high school. They can be in high school without making the story all about their queerness or their coming out or yada yada.
To roll off that, which was beautiful, by the way, Nita.
Thank you.
I have to say, that's kind of just how I'm feeling about it. I really do wish that these stories just kind of had. Personally, I don't read a lot of literature right now. Apologies, folks. I listen to a lot of audiobooks, but I usually go based off the recommendation of my friends in podcasts. That's usually how I find books these days. But that list is very small in the recommendations department of things that I can listen to while I work, because most of it never has that representation to begin with. But I really would like to get rid of, like, kind of the tropes at the same time. The books that are usually focused just primarily on Nazis, race, Nazis and race, as well as kids who have these terrible lives through high school. Because unfortunately, that does exist, but at the same time, there's also the exact opposite. There are very wonderful stories of kids who get to have very awesome, fantastic lives through high school, but I never see those books, and I don't like to read books that are going to make me just QQ the whole time. So knowing that there's going to be more representation that exists within those realms would make me really, really, really happy. So I'm happy there are writers out there who are kind of doing it now, but it seems like they're just now getting book deals and that they won't have books that are out until 2018, 2019 or so. So that's kind of the sad part. I know that it now exists, but it's not available yet.
The nice part is we're going to get a great influx of queer books in 2 years.
True.
Yeah, no, it's really amazing.
I need a time machine.
I read If I Was Your Girl recently, and I thought it really fit that so nice, because it was just like a nice, sweet, like rom-com. Like, I want it to be turned into a film so badly, because I think it's a really brilliant film. And like, I read it outside when it was actually sunny in Scotland, and I got sunburned for like the first time ever, because I was so engrossed I forgot to put on sunscreen.
Kind of piggybacking off that too, I think we need a lot more queer middle grade as well. Like, especially authentic queer middle grade. Because, like, I realized I was queer in middle school, and, like, there were approximately 0 books that I can think of.
It was an option in middle grade. Like, I realized in retrospect I had crushes on girls, but I didn't.
And, like, people, especially, I'm thinking of, like, Alex Gino's George, which was such a beautiful and much-needed queer middle grade book about a trans girl, and it's really great, especially because I think people think queerness and they automatically go to sex as the first thing that denotes queerness, and middle grade especially does a lot to kind of dispel that notion.
Yeah, and I think especially in science fiction and fantasy, there's a lot of opportunity to build worlds where there's no discrimination, where limits and binaries aren't the norm, and yet few are the books where you can see this.
I wonder why space is so white. No offense. We got really pale in space. A lot of my science fiction that I get to read, or that I do enjoy, usually is pretty color casted as very pale, very, very bright white. Anyway, not to harp on that for too long. But I would like to think that all these cultures that we currently have on planet Earth mashing themselves together making some very beautiful mixed brown race babies would equate that in space. But I was apparently very wrong. But that's okay.
Tanika, there's a book coming out in 2017, and I'm totally biased as this is my friend wrote it, but Tristina writes 27 Hours.
Yes.
Queer Teens in Space.
Queer Teens in Space, and it's only, I think, one of the main characters is white, and they're all intersectional. There's one girl who's deaf. Who is my
trans character? I like that character too.
There's an ace
I read
character.
this also. I'm probably gonna blurb it. I'm pretty sure she'll send me the final version.
I look
But
forward.
it's so good. It's so good.
Yeah, no, I'm actually currently working on my own science fiction comic with a very amazing artist by the name of Michaela Buckley. It is all people of color casted, obviously, for wonderful, great reasons. But I can't really say that I can pull anything off my currently overfull comic book shelf that would...
Yeah.
Saga had a decent amount of rep, didn't it? But it's not super queer, though, is it?
Which one?
Saga, the...
Saga's pretty okay.
Brian Vaughn.
Saga is pretty okay. I mean, it is on my shelf. I wouldn't
I've
say...
only read the first 2 volumes, but they had like 2 people of color as the main leads, which I thought was great.
Which was
James was
really
pretty
fantastic. And for the first time, like, yay! Still written by a white guy, but no big deal there.
Yeah.
It's really nice when we have that full reflection, just like everybody else gets that full reflection. It's kind of like the current conversation is, we're being given representation, but we're not allowed to be part of that representation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lumberjanes was pretty
Yeah.
and people of color as far as I remember.
Yep.
Yeah, true.
It's so
And
cute.
Shannon's also, Shannon Weathers is badass from Boom. Yeah. I was on a panel with Shannon. Shannon has a lot of great things to say, especially being a queer person herself, about queer identity and queerness in fiction, which is why I'm really happy to see people like her in positions at Boom and other comic book companies helping to kind of put in that change and make it happen, because if they weren't there, I'm pretty sure these books wouldn't have happened in the first place.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, there are a lot more examples of queer characters in fan fiction and fan work. Why do you think that is?
They're filling in what they're not being given.
Yes.
And we're like, we're seeing a lot of straight white people, so we're going to take the worlds that we love and we're going to put ourselves in them, and it'll be more reflective of what we actually want. And I think you can, a lot of creators could learn a lot from looking at fanfic and seeing what people actually want in their media, because I think people are getting pretty tired of straight white people all the time.
Yeah. I think
even straight white people are getting tired of straight white people all over the place.
I think too, in terms of fandom and queer rep, there is a bit of kind of a double-edged sword with that. There is a lot of still male fetishization in fandom, particularly white males that get shipped over the dearth of at the expense of female characters, and that is definitely something I've seen in fandom in particular, is that type of shipping. But I agree Diana and Laura about the queerness happening in fandom, because it's not something that we get to see much. Even in shows with canon queer characters, most of the fanfic still I've seen it like centers around the queer characters because we're so starved for that representation.
I read fanfic when I do have time. I'll admit that. I think it's really great. I think people are super creative and super having fun. They're taking two characters who I feel are usually like minor supportive cast or just like completely have nothing to do with the main series of the show, and they're taking them on their own little queer adventures, and I get to read all about it. And it's kind of sometimes more badass than the actual source material that it comes from. And I think that part of that creativity and that love going into these characters and then them eventually banging kind of makes everything really interesting and keeping the audience captivated. Because, you know, there are people who will write 500,000 word fiction pieces about two characters banging, but they can't write their own, like, I want to see them push out and like do that on their own with their own characters and stuff like that, so that people will really appreciate and love them for that voice, because they have a really good idea and they have a really good imagination. So it would be really cool if they did it originally just as well as they did it fictionally for fan fiction.
I find that interesting because I think we're getting a lot of that with authors now. Like, I grew up reading loads of Harry Potter fanfic, like all Harry Potter fanfic all the time. And, you know, I never ended up writing much fanfic because I was a bit too, like, hesitant to actually get any words down. But I read a lot of it, and I was really active, first in the Harry Potter fandom and then in like the anti-Twilight fandom where we all like make fun of Twilight but we kind of loved it anyway. So yeah, I was involved in that as well. And so now, like, I didn't write fanfic, but I think my fanfic upbringing has definitely resulted in much more diversity in my work because I read so much diversity in fan fiction, and I grew up in a diverse, you know, the San Francisco Bay Area. So to go to that default just felt wrong. And I think that's great. And I hope other, you know, fan readers and fan writers who are now writing their original stuff do the same thing.
Yeah.
And mirror the world around them.
I think, too, a lot of the stigma over fan fiction or being involved in fandom is kind of dropping, which is nice.
Yes.
I write fanfic now. If you see me tweeting about my X-Files fanfic.
Ooh, I want to read it.
Oh my god, I'll send it to you.
Yes, send it to me. Send it to me. I was also, I didn't get into the X-Files fandom, but I loved X-Files. And I actually uploaded the first trailer at WonderCon, and it went viral, and I was like the most viewed video on YouTube that day, and it was like amazing.
Yeah. Or like, there's a new show on Sci-Fi, Winona Earp, that has a canon queer ship, and it's super cute and awesome, so I write fanfic for that. But like, I'm sending it to you, by the way, Laura.
What's the TV show?
Winona Earp. It's on Sci-Fi here in the U.S.
I'll look it up.
It's awesome. You should watch it. But I think too, like, for me, fandom and fanfic is kind of like a way, like a playground for writing almost. Like, it's a way to stretch myself creatively and with different characters in a way that I may not in my own fiction or may like not have the time to do my fiction. So yeah,
it inspires me to make everyone queer and bang.
Yep. Everybody should be queer at the end.
Exactly.
We actually spoke about this at the previous panel, that a lot of writers started with fan fiction or role-playing games. And it's interesting because a lot of people are starting to talk about it now, and I saw it on Twitter the other day. People kind of exploded talking about the times where they role-played or they wrote fan fiction, and it's interesting to see that a lot of us share that common past into as an introduction into writing.
Because writing's so scary. Like, it's so hard to stare at a blank page and put something down without going, you suck, you suck, you suck, like, every time you write a word. So I think, like, playing with role-playing games and fanfic and things like that just make it a little less scary because some of the work is done for you, or it's collaborative, or you can get instant feedback, like if you upload chapter by chapter, or if you're playing a game, and it makes it more fun, so you kind of trick yourself into being a little less afraid to go for it. And so many people end up building up their confidence that way, and I think it can be a really great training ground for so many writers and creators.
Yeah. Definitely.
Having a girlfriend and writing with that girlfriend really made me want to write more girlfriends that kind of were either based off our relationship or more. As I've continued my own journey with discovering myself and coming to terms with my own queerness beyond what is just the current social labels that are usually put upon people, it's kind of just been a lot of fun to play with my own characters, which are little pieces of me that I've always wanted to kind of explore and identify with, and kind of letting them go forward and being my little mouthpiece for these pieces of me that maybe I'm not completely 100% committed to, but definitely feel are part of me. So that's one of the little bits I get to do with role-playing and also living and writing at the same time.
I think, too, kind of going back with the, we were talking about queerness in fandom, it's fun in fanfic to be able to subvert the tropes of straight white characters that we see on TV. Like, who says Dana Scully isn't bisexual? Dana Scully is totally bisexual if you write her that way. So it's just fun. It feels like a little bit rebellious to be able to go in and subvert the heteronormative structures that we see in media a lot.
Yeah. And rather than endless queer baiting, you just make them kiss and more.
Yep.
I will say I've read a lot, or I've seen a lot of Dana Scully pegging fanfiction.
Oh God,
That
no.
seems to be like the #1 like fanfiction that I've seen. So I'm just saying, I didn't read it, but I definitely saw it on the internet. Maybe.
And how,
I think you're responsible.
the panel is never going back to normal now.
No.
How do you think we can change that? It's probably, we have to change it at the root of the publishing industry, right? Letting in more queer professionals into the industry.
There are definitely some books, and some that I can think of recently, that are written by straight authors, and you can tell reading them they did not have, no one queer was involved in the process of it. So definitely getting really more diversity in publishing in general. I know, was it Lee and Lowe who did that survey?
Yeah, they did that.
Yeah, publishing's still very white, very straight, so a lot of stuff that is problematic.
Yeah.
We'll
So,
get.
like, if it was systemically changed, then you'd stop having really bad representation go through, because I think a lot of the time it's not malicious, but it's ignorance, and not. But ignorance still isn't an excuse when it ends up harming queer and people, queer readers and people of color and disabled readers, and like it should be commonplace to have beta readers and have sensitivity readers if you're writing from a straight person writing queer characters, to keep it on this panel. But in general, if you're writing someone not your experience, like it should be considered good practice to hire a sensitivity reader and pay them if you can, so that you're not having these really, like, a lot of them can be so easily fixed if they're pointed out, and most authors would be like, oh yeah, I can fix that. So that's kind of rambly, but yeah, I feel like being able to be that lazy shouldn't happen. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Okay. Tanika, do you want to say something about this?
No, I think they said it perfectly. I mean, it's pretty simple. If you want to write a book about XYZ, you should probably go actually research, talk to people, and make them part of the process. have a co-writer, have a research assistant, give them proper due credit, do your actual, put in the legwork, be kind and considerate to the cultures or the sexualities that you would like to explore in your books. We're not just research subjects, we're also human beings who exist and have voices in our own stories. So you can tap into those things and not feel like you're just like pulling things out of your butt because your editor told you that they want you to be more diverse, and you're like, oh, well, I guess that means I'll add a black person and then I'll kill them because that's perfect.
Yeah.
I've
never seen that happen before.
Yeah. I wish there were books where, you know, people were just more sensitive to other people, and the fact that they do exist, maybe it might make for a lot less of the horror reads that I hear about sometimes from my writing friends. So that would be a lot. That would be a lot.
Yeah. And like Nita said, you can tell. You can tell when they haven't done the homework.
Yeah.
Like it can be really obvious. Yeah.
That's where I think a lot of those tropes we talked about earlier I've seen is when you can they're out like they haven't done the homework, so they pull out tropes.
Yeah.
And I haven't even looked at the TV Tropes website. Which is a black hole.
What are you talking about? That's for research.
Yeah, it is good research, but man, I never spend less than like 2 hours at a time on that website, I swear.
Speaking of that, we have a question from our viewers. Lainiki asks, I think an issue with sensitivity readers is the cost. I've seen some posts offering that, but they can be out of budget. Is there an alternate solution to that?
I am waving because I want to talk.
Okay. Go ahead.
So, for me at least, I graduated college last month. I'm currently unemployed, and I cannot pay beta readers, sensitivity readers at this time. Like, I am financially unable to pay them. So I think what I've seen other authors talking about as generally being acceptable to is offering some sort of service in return. So like I can't pay sensitivity readers, but I can read manuscripts for them, or offer like a lot of reads basically are seen as an acceptable alternative. Now, like, because I know there was a bunch of backlash with a publishing company, like, talking about hiring sensitivity readers or something, and the pay they were offering them was very low, which is different. Like, obviously a corporation should be able to pay them, but if you're an author as well, pay if you can, but if not, like, offer some sort of alternative so they're not just reading for you for free.
Yeah, like, I haven't personally paid sensitivity readers yet, but I have offered, and a few times they've said, no, you're fine. Like, I was happy to do it, but I always offered, and I'm personally in a position where I can afford to pay sensitivity readers. Maybe not, like, loads, like, maybe not several hundred, but, you know, I at least want to offer enough for them to have a nice lunch and drinks as a thank you. And I also always offer to beta read in return, and I've beta read a lot of manuscripts, so it's not like I'll just do, you know, a quick read through with 2 or 3 comments. I'll go line by line, and it'll be, you know, tit for tat kind of thing. And I feel like that's also fair. So if you can't afford to do it, like so many people can't and are in that position. So yeah, if you offer to, I don't know, read a book and read one of their other books and leave a review if they're already an author, say, or beta read one of their manuscripts in return, spread the word as much as you can about their work if the other person's also an author. Just do what you can to give back. Don't just take and take.
Yeah.
I don't need beta readers. I apologize. Sensitivity readers. I apologize. I think it's really amazing that they exist. This is actually my first time actually hearing about them, because while I do work somewhat in the prose world, I don't work that deeply in it. But it's really amazing to see people go that far to make sure that their works are not only going to touch people, but also, you know, not influence them in dangerous ways.
Yeah. Okay, so since our time seems to be running out, what are some of your books and comics recommendations? I know you've mentioned some, but some books and comics that have good examples of gender and sexuality.
I guess I'll go first. Hey!
I'm like looking at my bookshelves. I keep saying, "Oh, I'm gonna collect the titles," and then I forget.
Yep.
I will recommend Skin by Spay Our Monster if you want that asexual, non-binary Halifax/Vancouver fantasy Canada aesthetic going on. That is kind of like one of the best books, best webcomics / books that's available free to read right now. It's one of
What's
my
it called?
Etskin, ETHS -skin. It's by Spay Our Monster. I'll put it in the chat for you as well, but
Yes.
it's beautiful and it's a glorious read, and there's selkies in it, and it's awesome.
I can do I can do books and webcomics and comics. For stuff that's currently out, Nina LaCour's Everything Leads to You is really, really beautiful. The main character she's either black or biracial, and I cannot remember off the top of my head, which is horrible. And she's queer, and it's just cute and fluffy, and it's a romance, and it's really, really wonderful. Dahlia Adler's Under the Lights also has she Korean American?
Yeah, she's Korean American.
Yeah, Korean American.
And a cute redhead.
Yes, who is bi. That one's great.
Yay!
George, that I mentioned earlier by Alex Gino, is a really wonderful middle grade, and like Laura mentioned, If I Was Your Girl, which is by Meredith Russo, is about a trans girl, and that one's really good. As far as the webcomics, the first one I can think off the top of my head is Questionable Content by Jeff Jacques. I think it's kind of new adult-y, but the cast is pretty racially diverse and pretty queer, and it just focuses on like their lives and relationships, and it updates daily, Monday through Friday. And then As the Crow Flies by Melanie Gilman is a really, really beautiful colored pencil webcomic about a queer black girl at a Christian camp, which is it's amazing. Just read it.
All right, I've got a couple. So I've got All of the Above by Juno Dawson, who's a transgender female author, and it's got a good look at bisexuality, where it's not like the main character goes to a new school and kind of meets a super cute boy and a super cute girl and isn't really sure which one to go for, so it's really cute. Definitely seconding Under the Lights by Dahlia Adler, because that was delightful, and I read it when I was really ill, and it helped me feel less ill, so thank you, Dahlia. Aria by B.R. Sanders, who's a genderqueer author, and it's a fantasy that looks at specifically lots of different family structures and different elves and stuff, and it's got really good world building, and it's quite like a slow coming of age sort of book, and I really enjoyed that. And I mentioned Lynn Llewellyn because I found those really life-changing when I was a little teen, so you'd start with Luck in the Shadows for that. And lastly, Robin Hobb doesn't have that much overtly queer stuff in her work, but I think the character of the Fool is very clearly genderqueer, and his relationship with Fitz throughout the now 9 books featuring them as leads is super queer, and I love them, and you should read those books because they're wonderful. And I think that's all for now.
Does anyone want to add anything?
No, I think I'm pretty solid.
I mean, we'll be here all day if you want.
Suggesting.
That's my life. I also run a Twitter comic called Queer Comics, where all I do is retweet, reblog, review comics all the time. So if people have something new to show me, or if people have something that I just don't know about, that's how I find out about things, and I hopefully pay it forward by making other people aware that it is existent. So that's about it.
That's at Queer Comics, right, on Twitter?
Yep. At Queer
so
Comics.
Go follow. Unfortunately,
Can I
sorry.
mention real quick that Shadowplay is on sale this month for 99p,
Go buy it.
or like $1.99, and the first book's fairly cheap at $2.99 in
Oh,
pounds.
heck yeah.
So if people would like to get that, that would be cool.
Go buy those. They're
Support your
amazing.
creators.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, I think that's all. Unfortunately, we don't have more time to talk about this. I'd like to keep talking with you for the rest of the day, but unfortunately, we have to go to the next panel. Although Tanika will be there too, so.
It's like 3 in a row now.
Triple
So,
threat.
so thank you so much, everyone, for watching, and thank you, Laura, Anita, and Tanika, for being here and being amazing.
Happiness.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.